Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, Versace Stoner. We're another episode of VSW Podcast. And I have to say, it's going to be a very special episode. I have a very special guest. But before we go all through that, I want to do something for a fallen brother. I heard some very sad news today. So if we could just take a moment of silence for a moment. Thank you, everybody. Very sad news coming out of the wrestling world today. And he was a guest on my show, and we talked many times, and I wanted to show respect. But now on with the show today, the one and only, the GOATest with the most. That's right, freaking Flax.
Hey, Versace, this is great to be here. This is I, Freakin Flax, go with the most, king of good times, maestro of the DTH. I am here. I am excited to be on the show. I dressed up for the occasion. What do you want to talk about, baby?
Oh, that's great. I love when people dress up for my show. It makes me feel more important. Well, we're gonna talk wrestling. How you like wrestling? I mean, I've seen you wrestle, so I take it you like wrestling.
I do like wrestling a lot. Yes, yes. You said who are my favorite wrestlers?
You can tell me if you want. Yeah. Who do you like?
Oh man, I like everything. I like. People from the past, people from the present. I like wrestlers from the future. I'm a time traveling wrestling fiend, my friend, man. I love all wrestling, man. I mean, some of my favorites of all time, Kurt Angle, man. When I think of wrestling, I think of Kurt Angle. When I first started getting into wrestling, I was also wrestling in high school, and Kurt Angle was coming up, and he's just, he's a beast. So my favorite of all time, Kurt Angle. I've only met him once, and I was completely starstruck, meaning that I just talked his ear off as he posed for the picture. But yeah, when I think of favorite wrestlers, Kurt Angle is my go-to. And as far as like people wrestling now, man, I mean, there's so many great wrestlers, so many great workers. Man, put me on the spot here. Put me on the spot. No. So
I
I
know
like a lot of
there is
wrestlers out of
none.
Japan too, but I also like international stars too. So I like the standards like Ospreys and Omegas, but I also like Moxley. I still have a place in my heart for Jericho. Still have a place in my heart for CM Punk. I still like Cody. I don't really watch a lot of the new wrestling on TV, but I watch a lot of the new wrestling around the indies. But I like a lot of our New England talent, man. I think New England is the hub for hot independent wrestling. We have so much great talent, and I don't know. I love the New England
No, we
wrestling scene,
do,
and I know you
and
do too.
that's the
You're
thing.
everywhere.
Yeah, and that is the thing. New England wrestling is some of the best wrestling. Independent wrestling for me is where it's at right now. I grew up obviously with WWE and a very strong WWE because the 80s and 90s was that. But as time went on,
Yeah,
I got back into it. The independent scene is where the fun's at. That's what you see in the guys today that will be on TV tomorrow. I've seen it, witnessed it firsthand. People just getting picked and going, oh, here we go, contract. Plus the excitement, plus how close you can get, plus
I shared a Nova with I shared a Nova. I shared a locker room with Casanova, in Proving Ground, and then a couple years later, boom, he's working on SmackDown. He's working with Andrade. He's doing big things. He's great. Yeah, AJ style. Like I'm so happy for him.
and that's the beauty of it because today's indie stars are tomorrow's going to be major stars. The dedication is there. Like I always say, the independent scene, everything is there except like maybe that $1 million budget. You're missing a couple of bucks there. Everything else is gold.
True.
But how long
The,
you
the
been
fans
wrestling
are,
for?
are as passionate, if not more.
Yep, yeah, I think
So
they're actually more. Well,
for me,
before you
since
get,
about
I was gonna
2000.
say, I was just gonna say, I think they're a little bit more passionate. I feel like they're less negative. Like they come to the show, they really enjoy it. They're there to support. Where sometimes WWE is good, but they have these expectations that are so high, and then when they don't get met, it just turns into negative fest. Like, oh, this sucked. This was no good. Where the indie fans, They don't really have
And
expectations. It is like,
that's
if
so
we see
true.
a
And then
goat, we
sometimes when
see a
those
goat.
expectations are met, they're just like, yeah, they did it.
But when you succeed, like, above and beyond,
um,
it's like, well, they fucking killed it.
I know, yeah. So for me, as far as like wrestling and stuff, I've been wrestling since 2004. But when I wrestled, when I started, it wasn't really what wrestling was now, as far as like going out there, doing the drives, doing the grinds, and wrestling for like all these different shows. I was stuck in a little gymnasium and a little boxing ring. We were putting on shows on a weekly basis, which was great, but we really didn't have any adequate training. The best thing that I could say about my first, like I'd say, 6 years or so in the wrestling business was got to learn how to work a live crowd, because we had a live crowd every single week, and we got to really learn how to work in advanced storylines on a weekly basis. So my first few years were kind of stuck inside that boxing gym, but then after like 2011, 2012, been wrestling all over the place, as far as like the Newton, Massachusetts Elks Lodge shows, working with Proven Ground on all of their shows from the older places in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, before they had all the live shows in Peabody and Beverly. Working with oh man, UFO wrestling with Pat Dillon. I work a lot of shows. We know him. I know that he's going to end up having his last show coming up for him personally, because he sold the company, but I was working a lot with him for the last couple of years. I also work as a referee in a bunch of places, whether it be NRG wrestling or New World Extreme Wrestling. But I also put on the goat mask for as many places as I could be. Beantown Wrestling, that was a new one. That was a fun show. Cabba Wrestle, that's a great show. I can always talk about
Yeah, that's
that
coming up this
with the
weekend.
live
We're gonna
music and
talk
the
a little bit
wrestling
about
and the
that
and the
too.
burlesque dancers. Like, there's crazy stuff happening.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about that. That's coming up this weekend. That's gonna be a fun one. And
I'm so excited, so excited. So which one do you want to talk about? Which one?
well, no, I was gonna say, and I get that the
Or
time
you
period is
carry it, man. I know there's a little bit of a lag, so I know it's a little bit off, so I do apologize. But you
yeah, I
carry it.
don't
Where we
know
go? Where we driving? Where we
where
doing?
where is the lag coming from? Do we know?
Dude, we're living in the Matrix. It could be coming
Yeah,
from
that's what
anywhere.
I felt. That's what I'm like. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. But you know what? You were saying 2004, a very time of, well, if I remember, wrestling was just, if you could do it, do it. Where you could do it, do it. It didn't really matter. Like, ECW was running wild, like, especially when I graduated, like in '01. People were fighting in my backyard, having shows, having fun, doing whatever they wanted. It wasn't really looked at as professional, but it wasn't looked as backyard. It's just like, we're gonna do what we want. Um, I never could get into
No,
it
no, that's
because
fantastic, and I love ECW. I am a huge ECW fan. That's when I really started to get into wrestling before I even knew about WWF. ECW was my thing. When I first saw Taz and Rob Van Dam and the Dudley Boys, I was blown away. And then only after that, because I had a black box where I could, watch the pay per views illegally. I mean, that's when I saw there was a commercial for SummerSlam '98 coming up with the whole Highway to Hell, Austin and Taker thing, and then I actually found out about WWF. But ECW, that's after my heart. I love ECW.
yeah, I think that kind of set off the spark for a lot of what we see even today still, of the way shows are run, promoted, and done.
Agreed. Agreed. Very gritty,
So,
very
what made you want to
real.
change from what made you want to change from those early years to doing the drive, to making these treks, to getting more and training and getting better? What made you kind of want to change that?
Um, it was sort of like a different kind of passion. At first, the passion was like, oh yeah, it would be fun just to kind of dress up and get in there and roll around with my friends and kind of have fun, and then like after a while, it kind of starts to get serious. You kind of really start to get invested in your character. The people that come to the shows start to get invested in your character. You end up starting making memories, and you end up seeing other live independent shows, or you have other people that kind of come in to see your stuff, and they wrestle with you, and then they go and they work other places. The place that I started, it was WAW, which I know just the name of it gets kind of a negative reaction, and for the most part, rightfully so. But there's a lot of people in the New England wrestling scene that started at WAW, whether it was a Chad Epic or a Stephen Lust or a Pimp Daddy Apple Cinnamon or a Delilah Hayden or a Derek Conway. There's so many people that have started in WAW, and there's people that have just come in and made their mark through. Dick Lane has come in a bunch of times in WAW. We've had Sean Leader in there, Joey Warner. So it was always an open door. But then, you start to go out there, you start to hear about their reputation, and then you want to try to start to fix their reputation. But sometimes, the reputation can never be changed. So you just kind of do everything you can for yourself to go out there and promote yourself and just see what you could do. Like, I wanted to go out there, I wanted to work other people, I wanted to work other places. So the only way I could do that is to kind of get out there and go see. And then I worked with Stephen Lust for a bunch of different places, in Rhode Island for like, RICW when that was around. And that's when I kind of met everybody for for Nova. I did a bunch of stuff for Supernova Wrestling. That was another one I forgot. Sorry, guys. I just work for all these places. I just keep forgetting. But yeah. And then just working all these places and making all these friends and stuff. And then just going other places. It's all about the connections and the people that you know and the people that you meet.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think, and it's so funny because when I got into pro wrestling, granted as a kid, indie scene didn't exist, right? I remember as a kid, the fire department, the police department would come around, sell me tickets. I would, they were donations for tickets. I'd go to the show. There'd be nobody there, like nobody known. I can't remember anybody. There would be like the honky tonk
Right.
man though, or Doink the clown, somebody that would like spark my interest enough to go and pay. But the scene itself was empty, hollow. And so when as I grew older, 2003, 2004, I actually got out of wrestling. Like I did something else. I wasn't big enough to be a pro wrestler at the time when I tried out to try. I was too small, 5'8". Nobody wanted a 5'8" wrestler at the time. It wasn't such a thing. It was like you could do other things, but there was no little man yet. It hadn't been established. Like the Eddie Guerreros and stuff hadn't came out yet. It was just Attitude Era still. They wanted that big man. So I went into boxing, did other things. When I came back to the scene in 2017, 18,
Nice.
I I was astounded when I walked into an
Oh,
indie place. I
wow.
didn't go anywhere else. I went into NCW, first time ever, dead of mass, and I was just astounded when I seen people like Dick Lane and Pimp Daddy Apple Cinnamon and people that had characters, main event spots, titles. Everybody meant something. They weren't just, they just weren't jobbers. They're just to lose to the WWE stars or whoever you brought in,
Right.
And then I think,
Yeah, I
it
think
was
the scene has
eventually,
grown like above and beyond in the last 10 years, if not less. And I thought that for a while the place to be was Florida, because of the performance center or a lot of the shows were happening in Florida. But then it's just like New England is almost like there's not even just one company that's what do you call it, like a minor league, like a just a sort a developmental, like it's all the 6 states, like everywhere here in New England is like the developmental territory for, like you said, the wrestlers that you see on TV, the stars of the future. It's all here, and I know we're going to see Channing Thomas. He's going to be the next one, right? Like he's
yeah,
huge,
easily.
NWA and
They
all this
just
stuff, and he's
announced
still making his presence felt in New England stuff. He's great.
They just gave him an I just announced, and actually VSW picked up the sponsorship for this match. He's fighting Zilla at the next Limitless show. That's a great
Oh,
match. To fight
that,
Zilla
that's going to be an
5'2". Like
amazing show.
that's
Sorry, it's going to be an amazing match. It's going to be a great show too. That match is going to be
yeah,
great.
I'm so mad
Like
that it's
he's
on the
he's
same
he's
night as
somebody that really gets it. Like he gets the psychology and he gets the character.
I'm just mad that it always happens. These things always happen on Whirlwind Saturdays where there's like 3 shows at once. Elkmania runs, Limitless runs, Focus Pro runs down there. Everybody runs at the same time, and it's just like that unfortunate Saturday that nobody else has time, and it's like, where do I go? Where do I watch? How do I watch them all?
That's a great call. I mean, I could be honest, if I'm in the position where like if I get to choose and I'm not on the show and I want to see a show and there's a couple different to choose from, it's kind of like, do you want to support a specific brand or do you want to support a specific worker? There's a lot of times, what do they call it? Tribalism in wrestling, where I know it's like, oh, you're either what WWE or you're AEW, or it's hard to be both. I think that's not the way to look at it. The way to look at it is supporting a wrestler or worker that you like. For instance, Orange Cassidy. Love him or hate him, everybody has different opinions on him. I used to watch that guy on like a nightly basis, trying to find YouTube matches of him when nobody that I knew who this guy was. And I was like, this guy's got the most brilliant gimmick in the world. He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to wrestle. He's lazy. And then he's still getting over, and then he's athletic as hell, and then he wins matches. So, like, the fact that he even made it on TV was just amazing to see. So, I just think that if you support a certain wrestler or worker, that's what you should be following. So if you are in the situation where there's 3 or 4 different shows to choose from, you got to go with your heart about or your gut about what wrestler do you want to see. Which worker do you want to see there live? Because the show, you might want to go see the show, a certain show or a certain brand, because the whole night is going to deliver amazing action, which could be true for a couple of different shows. But if there's one specific wrestler that you really want to see, that's the one that you should support, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, no, and I 100% agree because nobody is actually contracted, so the wrestler's gonna work multiple shows, multiple places, so it makes sense to kind of follow the wrestler rather than the promotion.
True.
And then you're right though. There is some shows that like if you're a dedicated fan of, let's say, Proving Ground or NCW, whatever, you're always gonna try to get to that like year-end show or that big one. Where sometimes other shows you
Right.
will just
Right.
go wherever that match is or that wild match that you might never see anywhere else. That's another thing. Like what matches
True.
will you see again, and what matches will you never see again?
Another great way of looking at it. Yeah. Yeah.
Last time that Steven Loss versus Chase Del Monte match, I looked at that as like never gonna see that again, possibly. So I wanted to see that. Both
You're
amazing
probably
wrestlers,
right. You're probably right. And that match was great. That match was
but
excellent. What a match.
it was.
They left it all in the ring. They tore the house down. Like it was what everything that you wanted to be and more.
And it's matches like that that make you proud to be an indie wrestling fan because it does show you what it's all about. It tells a story that's it's a little bit different than when you hear about Cody's story, but when you see these guys' stories, because these guys are working 3-4 times a weekend, sweat, blood, whatever, just
Right.
doing the grind. And when you see them making, you see them over with the crowd, and it's almost all real. It's like okay, this is something special we've captured here. Like this isn't, just showmanship or show. This is real emotion coming out of this, real feeling, real dedication. I feel that in the indie scene. Just it's also, I mean, let's face it, it's an intimate setting. You're closer. You get to meet you guys at intermission. You can take pictures with you. So you get to
Right.
feel
Yeah.
you guys a little bit more and feel your stories. Like I mean, right now, you've been doing these pre-shows with Proving Ground, really just kicking ass and you've been given a really big opportunity now to get on the main card.
For the Alchemania show, yeah. I mean, now here's the thing: a lot of people don't know, or they may not remember, or like yourself, you may not have even been around watching at the time. But I've been with Proving Ground for, I can't say since its inception, but for early days when we were doing shows, tape shows inside. I think it's Woonsocket, Rhode Island. I think that's where we were because I remember I had
Yeah.
a singles
Well,
with
the
Dick
old
Lane and another singles
showcase,
with Lust
yeah, the
there,
showcase place.
and then yeah, and then we also were working inside of the facility in Salisbury, I think, where maybe Bo Douglas was training out of, because I remember that was like kind of near the train tracks. I think if I remember correctly, we were doing a lot of those. We would do like weekend tapings in those places, and we would be filming so many matches. Like you might be working a couple times that day just because there was a lot of content that we could create and send out. But then when those live shows came around, like when I was thinking about Elkmania, this Elkmania coming up is going to be like my fifth or sixth Elkmania, which is just like, is that for real? Like I was in a battle royal like on Elkmania 3. I was in a match with Burke Beckett, and I think either Elkmania 4 or 5, where it was a mask versus hair match, where if he beat me, I took the mask off, and if I won, I got to shave his head. There was a point where he did take my mask off, but I had another exact same one underneath. I ended up winning, and we ended up shaving his head. And another couple of those Elkmania shows, just like a random 5-way multi-man match with Mike Montero and a bunch of people, like some random shows. WAW had a showcase match. So this Elkmania one, sorry, though I say that because it's not like I haven't been on the main card, but after those types of stuff, then there was a time when I was more exclusive to a couple of places, and in the last year or so, I've been coming back into Proving Ground, and so I've really been appreciating the opportunity where I'm welcome back with open arms, but I also have a spot. Like they gave me that pre-show spot for the live crowd, but it's also the stuff that's filmed for the other Proven Ground show that comes on that they put up on the IWC network. So like that kind of stuff is very cool to be a part of. And I've worked with Ariel or Diego or Pimp Daddy Apple Cinnamon when he came back, and then. The last one was MKK, the Canadian Moxie Lover. And then after that, I got presented the opportunity. They're like, do you want to have a match for the DLC championship at Elkmania? And the feeling that I got was like, this is a great opportunity. But the feeling that I heard, and I think that you were there, you could probably attest to it. Everybody in the crowd was like, oh, so I appreciate your kind words earlier, because they were like, yeah, I am really putting in the work and really showing the crowd and the people behind the scenes that I do belong. And if I'm doing this stuff in the pre-show, let's see what we could do on the main card.
I'm why I have it, because normally I wait to the end to ask questions, but my son did want me to ask you this. You mentioned DLC Championship. That kind of reminds me of gaming. Proving Ground is in all is
Yes,
gaming. My son wanted to know, do you ever play Goat Simulator?
that's exactly it. I absolutely have played the Goat Simulator. That is such a great game. I love
Isn't it
that
like
game.
it's fun, right? It's a lot of fun. We play it a
Man, no,
lot.
that game is crazy. I love it.
When he first saw you, he thought you were literally the goat from that game. He's like, "You got the Goat Simulator, Goat Wrestling here?" I'm like, maybe. I don't know. I have to
That's
ask.
so funny.
But it's funny. I was looking back, and I actually first saw you at one of my most pinnacle, I think, moments in my whole podcasting career. It was a
Okay.
2020 show. Early OCW was the brand name, but it was a Delilah Hayden show in Newton.
Ooh.
I think it was the last OCW show to run out of there, and I remember because I have pictures of you. I have Lays from the show, but it was such a show because I would see people like you. I would first time I saw people like Tony Spencer. They had what's his name, the Jester, the Clown. Just all these guys
Oh,
that I just
Batuli?
yes. They had all these guys that I just had never seen before. I hadn't been, like I said, I came in 2018, 19, and then I got into different shows, and then I started to get in like yourself. I was an OC fan, so I started going to Beyond shows because he was at Beyond at the time. So I started watching Orange Cassidy there and started getting into that, and then I started to backtrack other promotions. That's when I found Proving Ground through NCW. They were doing a promotion. I seen this cool little video game looking kind of
Nice.
flyer. I'm like, I think it was Proving
Hmm.
Ground 5. And I'm like, you know what? This looks awesome. I want to check this out. And so I started to get all this. But when the Newton show was close to the house, I'm like, let's go. So I met so many great people there. And then who would know that it would be my last show before the pandemic? So after that, I mean, everything was shut
Oh,
down
right.
until 21. So it was also the last show that I had like footage of, the last show that was in my memory. Like everything about the show was just the last thing I had about live pro wrestling. And I still to this day swear
I think there
Crispin
was
Cole
a it was a
is hard.
three-way, maybe myself, Delilah, and Draven Filth. I think that might have been the match. I
Yes,
think.
it was. It was a dangerous match too. Dravenfield was very violent that night. Poor Delilah. But I also
He
believe
is.
that Crispin Cole's
I
Crispin Cole's might have
yeah.
had part to do with the pandemic because he had a mask on that night, and I look back at my photos. He was wearing a mask like 2 weeks before this shit hit.
So Crispin Cole's is like, I remember his character from even earlier than that was, he was kind of sick of anytime he'd walk in front of a crowd, the crowd kind of infected him and like gave him the, and he was so he's always been that. But he's also somebody that wrestled with bare feet. He didn't have any shoes or socks or boots on, so he's just kind of a gross individual anyway. But I do think that you are onto something where he was kind of preempting everybody and showing what was going to be like for the next year in the world.
Yeah, yeah, but it was such a cool show because it also had some of my favorite guys. Like I said, Pimp Daddy Apple Cinnamon was brought in there, Dick Lane was brought in there, and Isana was brought in there. And
Mm.
those were three of my core wrestlers that got me into indie wrestling. It was the three people I saw, at that first NCW show that really just were so colorful and bright. And just like I said, so after that show, after the wrestling came back, I was just like, I started my podcast. I started wanting talking about these shows. Like sometimes the indie, let's be obvious, sometimes the indie scene doesn't get a lot of live traffic, a lot of live people. Sometimes the small shows. That doesn't mean that it's not a good show. That doesn't mean that the wrestling isn't there. So I wanted to put more eyes and ears on that.
Right.
And
Thank
so
you so
that's why
much.
I
That's awesome. I
decided,
hope that has helped, because like I said, everybody's just helping each other. All, what is it? Rising tides, um, um, whatever. All ships. Like, I know there's a saying there. I forgot a few words. I'm sorry. Hitting the head too many times.
now, did the pandemic affect you too much? Did you get any wrestling in during that time, or not really, or a little bit of both?
So actually, we were lucky to. Yeah, we got in. We knew somebody that had a place in Gloucester, Massachusetts. So we ended up having a ring in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and we would end up training and filming some stuff and some content, not just for like us and the people that we knew, but we had a couple of other places come in, whether it was Proving Ground or Nova or other places that ended up filming content in our facility in Gloucester. So that was something just to kind of
Awesome.
good to keep us in shape and in mind and body and stuff like that. But once the crowd started coming back, we were able to actually get out there in 2021 and 2022 and everything was back. That was a much better time period.
Yeah, no, but I won't knock the 21 period because when it came back, wrestling came back at a decent pace. I remember the tapings. Proving Ground would have their monthly shows still going on, and sometimes even more. They were having tapings, especially as we got day deeper in. Like Limitless Wrestling threw on a weekly show. Chaotic had a weekly show. Beyond had a weekly show. NCW had a weekly show. So all of a sudden, wrestling got broken down in the indie scene to a weekly level, which gave podcasters like me and my like other people that I work with constant content to follow and look for and talk about. So I could do preview
Which
show,
is great.
recap, which was a lot of fun because it sometimes month to month it's just too hard to take it all in. But when you can do a couple of matches every week that build up to a pay per view, it's like wow, this is like TV wrestling. So I will never knock that. I think it helped a lot. It helped
Absolutely.
me
Yeah.
get
And
to
wrestling in
like,
front of all those screens.
and I got to learn about a lot of the wrestlers and get to know them, people that I might have missed live. And I'll be appreciative because a lot of the schools, a lot of the promotions that had schools were or facilities were able to run those TV shows, which was nice. And it gave fans, away. But yeah, there's nothing like those live shows when they came back. Fans were wild.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. I'm trying to remember what the first like really big live show that I ended up doing back when the pandemic came back. It might have been one of the Newton shows. It might have been one of those. It might have been something with maybe Barnaby Combs and who's that dancer, Michael something from NCW. I know I'm dropping the name, but he's a good break dancer.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so
Corey
I know I
Michael.
remember doing Corey Michael, there it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's fun. He's fun. Yeah, I think that was probably one of my first big matches back, or in front of the live crowd. But yeah, I we got wrestling is in New England wrestling is just in full force. Everybody is working everywhere. You were talking about all those people that are working other places. People like Izana or Delilah or like the DCMC, like an entire crew that travels different places and they're putting in the work. Like kudos to everybody, man. Everybody's doing
Yeah,
everybody's doing the drives.
they're another one I want to kind of mention because they were at that first NCW show. At the time it was Mike Montero and they were called Detox. Ricky Medeiros and Jason Devine.
Mm,
Um, Tucker was still with AJP at the time, but those guys are so versatile and what they become and how they come, and not only how they work together, but like how like any two of them can work together, but then any two could also fight each other and give you a 5-star match.
true, true. We just saw one of those right with Montero and Tucker.
And you're gonna see another, I think, this at the Almania. I think there's another. I think they're fighting again. Two others.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
But that's
that's
versatility.
sometimes you have the best matches against your brothers because there's a lot of trust there, and you also know that like you're gonna go all out. Like there's sometimes some people you might be a little apprehensive about. I can tell you, personal experience for me. Anytime I work people that are like 3 times my size, which is more often than not, sometimes you be a little apprehensive on how hard I'm gonna hit these guys because they might clock me for real. But when you're with your brothers, you're clocking each other for real because you know that you both could take it. It's a great time.
Yeah, you know each other's limits, and not for nothing in wrestling, it's all about trust. So if you can, the more you trust the person, the better you can do.
Yeah, yeah, and you go all out. You'll leave everything in the ring with those types of matches. Those are great. Um, yeah, speaking of leaving it all in the ring, I know I don't know. I know we're probably halfway done, but I got at least 2 to 3 matches to promote for October if we can.
Oh yes, and I still got a few more questions. I did get some fan questions, and we can talk all about October.
Oh
Which is
my
my
God,
favorite
please,
month.
man, hit me with the yeah. You want to go with the fan questions first or
Well,
anything
I
else?
got sure. I got one person said, "Well, between your finisher and some other things, do you like butts?"
Like, do I like big butts and I cannot lie? Like like those type of like the
I'm
rumps, like
guessing.
that kind of butts?
I'm guessing. I don't know. I know your finish is like toss a salad. It is one of the greatest things. I got the call the other day, and I never called it a goat tossing salad. It was wild, but yes, the person was wondering if you like
So
tossing.
yeah,
I'm guessing
for the
it's too
shows
tossing.
where it's a little bit not too kid friendly, it is definitely the toss salad. And on the shows where there might be more kids than not in the crowd, I try to tone it down a little bit, and it's a kiss the canvas. So essentially, my job is to frustrate my opponent so much that they make a mistake and I capitalize. That is my goal. So if I could do that and I can make the crowd laugh and dance with me and shake with me while that happens, then I'm all for it. So that's why I'm always trying to outsmart or outpsych my opponent, because I'm not as physically dominant to most of my opponents, but I'm quicker and I could be smarter and I could be funnier and a little bit sexier. So I'm always trying to make them think otherwise, to think, where am I going? And I kind of get them off their game by when I do the dances or I do the humping or I do some of that kind of stuff. But then I have the drop to holds, man. I love the DTH, and I can pull one of those out of anywhere. So I get kind of that in my back, and then it's the thumb in the bum. I'll tell you what, the thumb in the bum, that's one of those things psychologically. My opponents are always thinking, man, if this guy gets behind me, he's going to shove his thumb in my bum. And I can't let that happen. So anytime I'm trying to get that, I'm always trying to get people out and psych them out. But yeah, that
It
thumb in the
keeps
bum
them
is
on
an
their toes,
effective
I'm
move.
sure.
It's also an effective setup to the toss out.
That's the point. And
I've
like I
also
say, it
had
keeps them on their toes.
we had a show in Newton, thumb in the bum to maybe thumb in the bum to Stephen Lust. Chad Epic gets on the apron, boom, thumb right in the mouth. Thumb in the bum to
Oh,
thumb in the mouth. Ever since then, that's been one of my favorite go-tos anytime I'm anywhere with Chad.
poor Epic. Or maybe not. Maybe he deserved it. I don't know. Uh,
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he
um,
did.
uh, somebody else. Have you? There's only the other only goat that I know in wrestling is Bobby Orlando Jr. Have you ever had to wrestle him?
No, but I know that when we do, it's gonna. I can just imagine the situation, the scenario where it's two of us, and we're just gonna start to feel each other out. But right when we do, it's gonna collapse, and people are gonna attack us, and we got to be a tag team. Like that's the only way we can do this. We have to be a tag team, and there's got to be a spot where he's pretending that he's using or petting the goat that he has or using it for something. And it's just me. Like we're gonna have a great time whenever that happens. It's gonna be magic. It's gonna be magic.
Because there really isn't nobody else there on the scene like you, and that's what I think what brings so much fun to it. Is the character work? Because sometimes it's characters, and but I feel like in a lot of times over the last years, wrestling has lost character work. But people go for the more athleticism. Yes, I'm a wrestler. I'm good. This is what I am. But no character. When I grew up, there was characters. There was people like George the Animal eating a turnbuckle and King Kong Bundy just doing whatever he was doing. Like I grew up with characters.
I can tell you when my character, if you want to talk about like Freakin' Flax in a nutshell, I am a combination of Doink the Clown, Gold Dust, Shark Boy, and Mick Foley. And those are all pretty much characters. You know what I mean? The Doink the Clown, because I'm always causing pranks. I'm always trying to make people laugh. And then we got Gold Dust because of the sexuality and because of the really awkwardness and like uncomfortableness that I could do. Shark Boy, because that guy he dressed up like the animal, but he just had that normal voice. So that's why my voice is a little bit crazy. But Shark Boys was a little bit, kind of crazy as well. And then finally we have a Mick Foley, and he's had so many different characters. So if I had to pick a character that's closely related, I go with Dude Love. But I also just
Yes.
say Mick Foley because there's a lot of times where I have to put my body on the line because of my size. So I'm always trying to do stuff like that. And he's somebody that always thought outside the box of wrestling. And that's why I kind of related to him and those characters as well.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, and I could see all those little aspects. I'm one of those people that, like I said, depending on the crowd, I don't mind upping the ante a little bit, having it be a little bit more risque of a show because you don't get to see that all the time, obviously. And if the kids aren't there, what's it matter? And if the kids are there, then you put on more of a kid friendly show, and that's cool too.
Yeah, kids love me. I mean, I'm passing out. I actually had the leg. You were talking about. You said you had a leg from the show from the first one?
I have like
First time you
yeah,
saw me? Yeah, I knew I had
I have
one.
like a
Yeah,
I have
I'm
like a
always passing out
box of
legs. I got
Lay's
hundreds in my
of
trunk.
Flag. I have like a box of Lay's from Flags every time, like 2, 3 Lay's. It's great though because,
That's
like I
amazing.
said, it's fun.
That's
It's
amazing.
fun though. Not you come out, it's very exciting. You're running around, you're throwing them out. The kids are going nuts. The adults are going nuts. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, it's a goat!" People are going crazy. because they're not expecting that. No one's expecting that in 2024 to see a goat wrestling.
And if I could put over my theme song for a minute, I'm a big fan of that song because I made it myself, and it's one of those songs that's just about me. It talks about me and the thumb and the bum and the Hurricane Ranas and the whatever, all that kind of stuff. So like the fact that it's got my own clap in it, and it's all freaking, and it's me singing. I think that it's just like a different presentation, than a lot of other people are doing.
Did,
Not to
did
say
you
that
put it on
anybody else's
Spotify?
whatever's or whatever, but I'm just saying for me,
Did you put it on Spotify?
uh, I think it is. If I know it's definitely on YouTube because I have it on my YouTube channel. But if it's not on Spotify, I will definitely upload that there this week. But it should be, yeah. But
I'll
definitely
bump
YouTube.
that. If it's on YouTube, I'll bump it in the car. I don't care. It's a catchy song. It's like one of those Joe Henry songs. Like you keep singing it, it keeps going.
Yes,
Um, but
I've
you said you
always been
got
a
a
fan
busy.
of those types of songs,
It's fun, right? It's what
like
and
the
this is
Man
what I
Called
think.
Sting, or like Cactus Jack, Mike Awesome, and that Awesome Bomb that he had, Awesome Breaker, like any of that stuff, like any of those types of songs, I love.
You know, it's great though to see it, and because like I said, sometimes you kind of lose the fun in wrestling. Not that it's not fun to watch or enjoy, but
True.
it's just the aspect of what fun is. Of being goofy, silly, not being being creative, just being outside the box, not being just whatever. Seeing a goat, seeing different funny aspects, seeing things happen, like I said, that you don't see every day, Monday through Thursday.
And there's room for everything in wrestling. That's why it's like one of the greatest forms of entertainment in the world, because there's definitely times to be serious, and there's definitely times to be fun, and there's definitely a time for a combination.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It is. You can take. It's very subjective. You can take whatever you want out of it. If you want to watch the serious stuff, cool. If you want to watch the comedy, cool, go for it. If you want to watch the whole thing, take that. There's so much for everybody.
Love it. Love it. Any other fan questions, or should we talk about the next shows coming
No,
up?
I was going to ask you. You said you got a busy October. Let's talk about it here. Let's hear it.
Yeah. All right. So I don't have anything for this weekend, but next weekend, the 19th, I am wrestling for a company called Never Quit Wrestling (NQW), which is almost like the island of misfit toys when it comes to New England wrestling. Because there's people that were from MAW and people that were from RICW and people from a couple of different places, and that are all like kind of conglomerating in this one little place. And there's some really good talent in this
There
place.
is.
There's some
You know what's
that are
funny about
I'm
them?
very happy to step in the ring with.
I was gonna say, what's funny about them? They had their humble beginnings in the same place, in that showcase place, and they got themselves out of there and went in front of live fans and made themselves bigger and better, and
Yes.
took in all these people. And it's great to see that. It's great to see
Yes.
companies thrive like that. It doesn't really matter how much where you start, because everybody's got to start somewhere, but where you can take it, that's the important part.
Totally agree. So I know there's going to be, I know like Chaz Marinelli is on that show. I know that Frank Bones is going to be on that show. I know there's going to be a couple other people on that show, but for me, it's Freakin' Flax and it's Draven Filth in a street fight. So like now I get the opportunity to go out there and show like the McFoley side, my violent side, in front of a
Wait a minute, wait a
different
minute, wait a minute.
crowd of people, in front of a different audience that hasn't seen me in that type of situation.
Didn't I see you though? You said
I'm
nothing
sorry,
this
was it?
weekend, but didn't I? Didn't no? You said nothing this weekend, but didn't I see you announce for Kava Wrestle Saturday?
I don't know if I'm on for this weekend. I think that's going to
Or
be,
were they
if
just
I am,
showing
then I'm
you
going to
off?
double check my schedule. If I am, then I'm in.
Were they just showing you off as
You know what?
being
I got to
like
double
part of
check,
it?
but I thought that they had a show. Yeah, for some reason I thought they had a show in that I'm going to be a part of in like either November or December. I can't 100% if
Oh,
it's going to be
okay.
for this
Maybe it's
weekend,
for
but
the
if it
next
is,
one. They were just
I'm down because I
advertising.
love that crowd.
I am going this Saturday
Yeah,
for the
probably.
first time, so I want to check it out. I got people that have been saying this is just a great experience, something totally different out there, and I'm for it. So I'm gonna check it out for sure. But I did see your
It
picture
is.
there under Cabba, so I didn't know if you were on this one or if it was next. Okay, sorry about that. Keep going.
I'm going to double check. I am going to double check when I am done with this podcast, sir, so I can make sure. But yeah, so I have that street fight with Draven Filth. He was my partner in that NQW in Never Quit Wrestling, and he pretty much just laid me out the last time that I met him there, and so we have an opportunity to kind of bring any type of weapons or any type of violence in front of this crowd. So I got some stuff up my sleeve. I am so excited. I'm not going to get too crazy sexual like I used to do with the barbed wire double-ended black dildos. I don't know if we're able to say that, or dilders as they would
Yeah,
say. So I
you
don't want to
can.
get kicked off
No,
of
it's fine.
YouTube there. All right, all right. So I'm not gonna go crazy like that, but definitely gonna bring some stuff out that's gonna be fun to play with for the audience.
Are those crazy matches on YouTube somewhere though?
Oh, absolutely, man. I've put in so much time in like that WAW since 2004. There's a lot of stuff for me with and without my mask. There was a time when I wrestled without my mask for 2 years where I was actually a bad guy. But for the rest of every time, I've been a good guy. But there's been times where I wrestled in Manchester, New Hampshire, and then just being like going crazy, balls to the wall with whatever I could. But then it kind of then you kind of learn to work smarter, not harder. So I'm able to get the same types of reactions from not having to do that, from just being able to do like the Sweet Caroline or something like that, or the recently I think I did at the show you were at, the how many licks does it take to get to the center, and I had
That was good.
MKK and my foot and my bum, and it was all right, 1, 2, 3, that kind of stuff. So that's always fun.
I mean, even you laying a referee 3 times, that's gonna pop, believe it or not.
Yeah, yeah, I try. Yep. So we have that one coming up, and then we have Proving Ground Elk Mania. That one's gonna be, I think it's Elk Mania, what, 11, 12
Yep.
maybe? I think it's 11.
No, it's
That's gonna
11,
be at
yeah.
the end of the month on the 26th, and I'm fighting Frank Bones for the DLC Championship. And you had mentioned the DLC Championship. It is exactly what you think about as far as the games go, because what I thought was really cool was the beauty of the DLC Championship was when you're the champion and you own it, you get to create the rules of the match. So there's already been a couple of different people that have held that championship that have had different rules, different types of matches. And now we got Frank Bones with the showdown rules. Those are that's a set of rules that I've seen him wrestle in before. So this is going to be a great opportunity for me. I've never wrestled one of those before, but I'm very familiar with it. So it's treated like a boxing match, like a big time, big fight feel. And there's just a couple of 5-minute rounds. I think 3 5-minute rounds for Proving Ground. And then there's the break in between. Get to have a cornerman. I'm going to have Nessel and Atlee as my cornermen.
Oh
It's
my
going to be great.
god.
Yeah, so we're going to have a great time. But I know Frank. Oh yeah, and I know Frank Bones. He's got a whole friggin' squad of people. So I'm trying to do everything I can to have enough people on my side to battle his side. And I got to be careful of any kind of shady tactics that his cousin Greedy is going to pull if he's going to be there too. So it's going to be very interesting. But the fight with Frank Bones in front of that crowd, that's what I'm looking forward to, because we know each other a little bit. We've only wrestled once or twice one-on-one, but we know of each other. So I know what he's capable of. I know what he's going to do. I'm going to try to outsmart him, outthink him. I'm going to wrestle that DLC championship away from him at that show in Alchemania. It's going to be great.
It is. And plus, you got something he doesn't have. You got horns.
I do have horns. 2 thumbs, 2 horns, 1 bum.
Oh boy, that's going to be interesting for Frank Bones, and especially with quick rounds, you might be the quicker beast there.
One of the things he has is no ring outs. If you end up leaving the ring, the match is over. So you got to keep it in the ring. It's and it's not like it's almost like a confined lumberjack match. You just can't leave the ring. It's like not like old school NWA or WCW rules, because you don't have to get thrown over the top. If you leave, you're done. You don't want to be looked at as like a coward trying to leave.
No,
So
no, but
you got to keep
honestly,
everything confined. That's why it's definitely going to be a fight.
I've seen things like this, like on YouTube, where like they've literally had two goats, real goats, locking up and putting in a square, and they were banging heads and going to town, and that would be the prize, like the town's goat. Whoever won that knocked the other goat out of the square. You got the upper edge in this game.
They could be related to me, man. They could be some of my cousins from other mothers. I could know those goats.
See. So is that it for October?
Well, yeah, I think there's only a couple more weekends left. I think that's what I got for October, but then we got November Rain for Beantown Wrestling, man. I mean, how great was that other show? How great was that first show that took place a couple weeks back or last week?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, me and Nick the Greek were behind on the commentary, and we were just, it was amazing. We saw all sorts of things. We saw you. We saw, um, champions be born, people win. It was such a night. The music was bumping. I have to say, I was a big fan of the music out there. DJ really spinning things. It was a good time.
The DJ was really kicking it, man. He was playing some great jams. I had the opportunity to I'm like behind the curtain, ready to go out, and I'm thinking to myself, how many times do you have the opportunity to be the first one out the curtain, the debut match for a debut promotion? That like just kind of like honestly blew my mind a little bit because that doesn't happen too often, at least in my experience. I mean, maybe for others, promotions maybe just come up, they have one show and that's it. But like a place that I believe is going to have monthly shows, or at least having more than just that one show. So I was like so excited to go out there. I worked Derek Conway. He's a hard hitting mother fracker, man, and he is an underrated wrestler in New England wrestling because he can do so much more than people give him credit for. And he has a different mindset too. He thinks a little bit outside the box, but him and I had a great, I'd say a good match. He was throwing me around left and right, and then just the thumb in the bum and the toss salad, and baby, we were rocking and moving on. But that was a great show. What was that? Bo Douglas and Stephen Beck and Channing Thomas for that championship in the main event, that three-way. That was great.
Plus the Rumble, you had the Rumble in there. It was a night to
Right.
remember, and you're right though. It does mean something for a new promotion on their first show to take you and say, "Hey, go out there," because you're kind of setting the tone. If you go out there and screw the whole thing up, everyone's walking out.
That's true. I mean, that's also with the thing with the Proven Ground and the pre-show. We were going to get shirts that said Mr. 645. We still might do that, but a lot of people are almost like, oh, they work at the pre-show. But whether it's the pre-show or not, you're still the first match. You are, like you said, you're setting the tone for the entire show. And if you ask almost any other wrestler, any other worker, 90% of them are going to tell you that the best places to be on the card or on the show is either the first match or the last match. You know what I mean? You ain't first, you're last, So like that's the place that you want to be because that's going to be the thing. I mean, I think I have a slight advantage when people say, "What do you remember about the show?" I think almost anywhere I'm placed on the card, they're going to say, "I remember the guy in the goat mask." Honestly, but other than that, people are going to remember the first thing they see or the last thing they see.
No, 100%. And when you see a goat first, like, well, shit. I mean, that sets the whole tone. You've seen a goat come out and wrestle. It's like, what are we gonna see tonight? What is gonna happen? What can happen? The possibilities are endless when it starts off that way.
Yeah, I love getting the crowd into it. I love making them laugh. I love making the referees laugh. That's low key one of my favorite things, especially a referee I haven't worked
Uh,
before. Like if they're in the ring with me for the first time, I am definitely trying to break them.
that's great. That's great. I guess I got one more question for you. Personal question. What do you think? What match has been like your most match that you just look back and it's like at all? Like this is, oh my god, this happened. Like this has been the match.
So that is a great question. I have two. The first one I want to name is I had the opportunity to actually have a wrestling match with my real life brother, which is something that I just never really thought possible. He ended up working in the promotion I was in Manchester for like 2 years. And during that time, like he said, "Can I, you want to have a match?" And we got to have a nice little angle and have a match on our big stage, which was called Legacy before the RWA had their legacies. So we ended up having a show at a match at a Legacy that was a really great match, and one of those that, in the middle of the match, I'm like, "Hey, can you feel this? Like, do you feel the crowd?" And he's like, "Yeah, this is great." But then we, back to punching the hell out of each other. So we had one of those. But the other one I had a match that is kind of timely now because of Halloween. It was called a trick or treat match. Basically, what it was is there was a bunch of tricks or treats in boxes. So tricks could be weapons, and then treats could be candy, or depending on the wrestler, weapons as well. So that was a match that I had. I think it probably went like 35 minutes or so, but the violence and the type of stuff that happened in the match was, I was bleeding everywhere. I ended up getting my mask ripped off for the first time in front of the crowd. I ended up separating my shoulder because I thought that doing a double crossbody on the apron would be a smart move. That was not a smart move. So I separated my shoulder there. I still continued on for the rest of the match. I was wrapped up in a straitjacket, and I was able to do Hurricane Ranas. Like, so like that was kind of fun. Like the stuff that I didn't really think that I would do. And I also got to wrestle with barbed wire and wrestle with thumbtacks and wrestle with, a bunch of stuff. And I walked out the victor after a long, like heated match. So a match I had with the wrestler by the name of Rocco, who's wrestled here and there around New England. We had a trick or treat match in 2013. That was a great one. And then 10 years ago, my brother in 2014. I'm not saying I haven't done anything great since then because I've had a lot of fun since then. A lot of times, I know there's people that have been on other podcasts where they think about a favorite Flax match. They mentioned this match that happened in Salisbury. Can't even remember who I was working, but it was a match where they had the train tracks outside randomly because it just doesn't, no cue. We don't know when the train came as I was in the ring. And I don't know if you've ever seen on YouTube what happens when goats are scared or they get freaked out just a little bit. They kind of freeze up and they tense up and they just fall over. So we're just in the match spot, whatever, don't even know what's happening. The train comes, train, and I'm just dead. And people are just, they always talk. And then the guy's just like, what is this? And he's trying to wake me up. And eventually I think he does. And I give him a small package or something. But yeah, I was like, that's one of those memorable Flax moments or matches with the train. And you got to work on the fly, man. You got to feel it. You got to just go with the moment.
Oh, that's great. My goodness. I gotta look up but I tonight I'm gonna go down a Flax like a Flax hole down YouTube. Just keep searching Flax matches, see what I can
The
find.
Flax hole, dude. Verratti wants to go down the Flax hole. You heard it here, folks.
Think that's what I'm gonna do. My poor wife, she's gonna be stuck. She's gonna be thinking of goats all night long as I'm watching it over. So I'll stay up to like 3 in the morning watching this stuff. And she'll be trying to sleep, and then she'll wake up for work and be like, "Why was I
Yeah,
dreaming
if
of
you
all
want,
this
I can send you
goatiness?"
some stuff. I can go down there. I can send you some stuff that I thought was kind of fun or whatever that you might be like,
Yeah,
all right.
please
This
do.
is kind of
Yeah,
like kind of
definitely.
prime Flax or whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I've been trying to
I love
catalog
it.
all my
I'm
stuff,
there
man,
for
but
it.
from like 20 years of matches, it's tough.
It is, and then a lot of the earlier stuff. I mean,
Appreciate
honestly,
that.
the
Appreciate that.
video
Appreciate
wasn't,
the support.
and I'm sure it was hard though with all the earlier stuff. The video wasn't there.
Oh yeah, of course. And the video that was there, it's a totally different camera. It's not HD. It's just the camera that you would record those little DV tapes and pop in when you can.
Yeah, yeah. Times have changed, technology's changed, but it's great to see it though. It's great to see it all. Where can folks find you? Do the social media thing?
Yeah, man. Freaking Flax on Instagram, Freaking Flax on YouTube, Freaking Flax on Twitter, Freaking Flax. I have my own, obviously the Facebook thing. Yeah, Freaking Flax everywhere, man. And Freaking Flax is just those combination of words that not everybody has. Like I know you said that you graduated in '01. I graduated in '03, so just a couple years after you. But I AOL Instant Messenger. I'm sure that you remember those days. I just was
Yeah.
able to do freaking Flax, like not like freaking Flax with three X's or like all these numbers or something after that just stuck. And then when I did that when I was a young teen, that just ended up sticking as far as my wrestling name. Like, what do you want to be called? I'm like, I don't know, freaking Flax. Like way before Seth freaking Rollins. Like we're talking early 2000s.
Yeah, there was no Seth Rollins then. Oh, that's great though. Great stuff. And I do remember AOL Messenger, and I'll tell you, those times wrestling was totally different. You wouldn't be talking on like X. You'd be talking on some channel or a board, and you'd have all these fantasy leagues and fun little things to do.
I used to love those wrestling message boards. I used to love those like wrestling booking games that were on the computer that were more like turn-based games on those types of message boards. Like that stuff was really cool and really interesting. I mean, the dial-up and or like the slow type of stuff that really did hurt at the time. But Raja, like the place to go to for all your spoilers and stuff. Like wrestling spoilers. Wrestling is taped and there's like results already out and I can find this out. That's great. But then it's like, oh, I can find out where this wrestler lives. Oh, this is not good. Well, why is this information available? No, this wrestler's real name. No, what? Sean, Michael Sean Hickenbottom? What? Like, I don't know about this. Give me my Shawn Michaels. Give me my Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. It went like to knowing nothing to knowing everything to just being like, how do I go back? How do I get back into that matrix?
And that's real tough because I got to be honest. I think that there's so many different types and things to do in wrestling. Just to give you like an example, when I'm listening to wrestling podcasts, I'm trying to get as many different sides of everything as I can. So I might listen to a little bit of Cornette. I might listen to a little bit of Bischoff. I might listen to a little bit of Meltzer. I might listen to a little bit of Busted Open with Dreamer and Bully Ray and Henry and all them. I might listen to a little bit of Vince Russo because I like to take everybody's opinion on what's going on at whatever the subject is. And because of that, that's why I think wrestling is one of the best sports in the world and one of the best forms of entertainment because of all these different opinions and what wrestling can really be. I think I actually had a better ending to that, but I lost my train of thought as I was trying to remember all the different podcasters that I was listening to. Short memory problems, man. I think you know what I'm talking about.
I hear you. And with that one, I am going to say, I wish you luck with Draven. Let's go. I wish you luck with Frank Bones. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be a hell of an October. And hopefully somebody books you in another trick or treat match. That sounds just like fun.
Well, hey, man, let's talk maybe a little bit of Beantown wrestling action, and we'll be able to get that going pretty soon.
Maybe.
I mean, I know October is already done, and it's November rain, so it doesn't really make any sense then, but I'm definitely down to bring a trick-or-treat match to Beantown Wrestling.
Hey,
Wrestling Alliance, BWA. That place was fun as hell. I can't wait.
I can't wait to be back there in November.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate the support. I appreciate anybody that tuned in, and I appreciate all my fans that have stuck with me all these years. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being a part of the show. I really do appreciate that. I hope to be back. And yeah, good times. Go with the most. Freakin' Flax. Namaste. Or
thank
Ole.
you, Flax. And thank you, everybody at home, for watching. And as always, support indie wrestling. Versace Stoner out.
Gloves are on and ready to thrill. November rain's got us in its grip. Every move under the icy wave.